But I've always voted for funding for the troops, and I appreciate so much the chairman standing up here and offering his telephone number to any family who's concerned whether or not their loved one will have access to body armor in Iraq. I remember those first hearings when I came here in March of 2003. We were instructed on how quickly our men and women in the field could get into their chemical suits. This was an object of great concern to everyone in this body. In fact, most of us sit on top of a chair which has a gas mask underneath it just in case we need to leave this body in a hurry because of the deployment of chemical weapons. We were all concerned about chemical weapons back in 2003. Now, I've made 5 trips to Iraq, and I know that what is reported on our television news services here in the States is not always accurately reflective of what's happening on the ground back in Iraq. I referenced Dr. Norwood a moment ago. My last trip to Iraq was in July of 2006. Dr. Norwood, Chairman Deal, and I and Gene Green from our health subcommittee went over to see the status of health care for our troops. I was very impressed with what I saw that day. But, Madam Speaker, I think everyone in this body has to answer 2 fundamental questions on this resolution before us. Is it in our broad national interest to win this fight? The second question, can we prevail? Can we provide a modicum of security in the country of Iraq? Can we provide a modicum of sovereignty in the country of Iraq? For me, the answer to those 2 questions is yes. Yes and yes. And I recognize that people of goodwill can disagree about these issues. But if your answer is no and no, then please stand up, show some courage. This is a non-binding resolution, for crying out loud. Even a Democratic presidential candidate said it's equivalent to standing in the corner and stomping your feet. We have heard a lot about moral obligations tonight. Well, I would submit that we have a moral obligation that if we can't answer both of those questions in the affirmative, bring the troops home now. Don't wait till April. Don't wait till September. If we haven't the resolve to see this thing through, or if we no longer feel that it's in our broad national interest to continue this fight, why in the world would you ask any man or woman to continue to serve in that country under those conditions? It is our moral obligation to ensure that our troops know our intentions and they know that we are going to provide continued support for them. And that continued support, whether it's bullets for their gun, whether it's the M16, whether it's the Humvee, or whether it's reinforcements, we are going to continue to provide the things that the generals on the ground say they need for their men and women to get the job done. When the President invited me down to the White House right before his Oval Office speech, he asked me what the constituents in my district would say. And I said, Mr. President, it's pretty clear. My constituents would say to you, if they were standing here today, fight the war or bring the boys home. The rules of engagement, sometimes, frankly, I don't understand. If we capture someone in Sadr City and we get a call from the Prime Minister's office and we got to take him back and let him go, that doesn't make good sense if you're fighting a war. Well, it looks as if a lot of those restrictions have been removed. And in fact, on Drudge Report and Fox News earlier this evening, they broke the story that Muqtada al-Sadr is now living in Iran. That's a good thing. That reflects the change in tactics on the ground brought to you by our men and women who are fighting for our freedom abroad. Madam Speaker, I suggest that we commit together to support the future support of our troops in the country of Iraq, or simply get them out of harm's way now. Again, Muqtada al-Sadr has fled to Iran. I think we can prevail. I think it's in our broad national interest. I think the price of defeat is simply too steep, not just for us today, but for generations in the future. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll yield back. I would like to pose a parliamentary inquiry, however.
Please state your parliamentary inquiry.
Would it be wrong to propose an amendment that would ask that we add support for troops that will be in harm's way in the future in line 1 of this bill?
The chair would entertain such requests only from the majority manager of the bill.
Entertain the request from where?
Manager of the bill.
well, then I would call on the majority manager of the bill to consider adding future support for our troops, or those troops who will be in harm's way in the months to come. And I'll yield back the balance of my time.